Have you ever looked around your home and thought, I bought all of this because I needed it, so why do I still feel stressed about money? I used to tell myself I was being responsible. I waited for sales, I hunted for deals, I only clicked checkout when something felt necessary. But 2 weeks later, the same pattern kept repeating: regret, second guessing, that familiar tightness in my chest when I checked my bank account. It wasn't just the money I was losing, it was the peace of mind I thought I was buying along with the things. At some point I realized that traditional budgeting advice, spend less, save more, track everything, wasn't touching the real problem for me. I didn't just need another app or a stricter rule. I needed to understand why I kept reaching for my wallet in the first place, and why smart buys still left me feeling heavy. That's when I slowly began to learn from Japanese minimalism. Instead of focusing only on numbers, it invites you to look at your relationship with stuff, with comparison, and with your own expectations. Research on minimalism has found that it's linked to better well-being and lower stress because it helps people focus on what actually matters and let go of the rest, which can even ease negative emotions like anxiety and depression. In this video, I want to share 5 spending principles from Japanese minimalism that help me feel genuinely more comfortable with my money, not just better organized. We'll talk about choosing quality over quantity, creating an intentional spending plan, gently resisting advertising and discount traps, finding contentment with what you already have, and using smart spending to build real freedom in your life. My goal isn't to make you stingy or afraid to spend. It's to help you breathe a little easier, feel less guilty, and see money as something that supports a quieter, kinder life, not one more thing to constantly worry about. So maybe the first gentle shift is not buying less, but buying differently. If you owned fewer things, but each one was carefully chosen to truly deserve its place in your life, how would that change the way you feel every time you open your closet or your wallet? 1. Buy quality, not quantity. When I first started exploring Japanese minimalism, one of the things that surprised me most was how quietly people choose their belongings. In many Japanese homes, you don't see a mountain of stuff. You see a few well-chosen objects that seem to have earned their place. It's not that people don't like beautiful things, it's that they prefer things that can walk with them for a long time, instead of flashing briefly and then turning into clutter. For a long time, I lived the opposite way. I chased sales, grabbed good deals, bought 3 or 4 versions of the same item, because it felt like I was saving money. My closet was full, my drawers were heavy, but somehow I still found myself saying, I have nothing to wear, or I really need a better pan, or why does this break so fast? It wasn't that I didn't have enough, it was that I had too many things that weren't really meant to stay. That kind of living looks cheap on the receipt, but it's incredibly expensive for your mind. Japanese minimalists follow a simple, stubborn principle: choose fewer, higher quality items instead of many cheap ones. It doesn't mean buying luxury brands or chasing status. It means choosing objects that are well-made, reliable, and truly suited to your life, so you don't have to think about them again and again. The mug that doesn't chip, the pan that doesn't peel, the shirt that keeps its shape after dozens of washes. Over time, this isn't just a style choice. It becomes a way of protecting your time, your money, and your mental energy. To make that real in daily life, I started giving myself a tiny ritual before buying anything. I pause, even for a few seconds, and I ask 3 questions. First, how long will I really use this? Not how long it could theoretically last, but how long I honestly see myself reaching for it. Second, will it serve multiple purposes? Can this jacket work for work and weekends? Can this bag go from travel to everyday life? Can this tool replace 3 others I rarely use? And third, do I actually use something like this often? If I barely wear dresses, that perfect on-sale dress won't suddenly turn me into a dress person. If I rarely cook smoothies, a blender won't magically change my habits. These 3 questions are like a soft red light at the checkout line, giving me a chance to turn around before I spend on something that will end up forgotten. There was a time I bought 5 cheap t-shirts because they were on sale. Within a few months, they faded, stretched, and somehow looked tired even when they were freshly washed. Later, I decided to invest in one well-made shirt that fit my body comfortably and worked with almost everything I owned. Years later, I still reach for that shirt without thinking. Another time, I bought a $20 blender because I didn't want to waste money on the better one. It broke in 3 months, right when I was starting to enjoy making smoothies at home. I eventually bought a quality blender, and it's still working smoothly. When I add up the cost of all the cheap but good enough things I've replaced, the number is much higher than one calm, reliable purchase would have been. In Japan, people are often known for being selective buyers. They read reviews, they compare, they wait, they think. There is a cultural respect for durability and reliability, for things that can be repaired and used over and over. This mindset naturally supports a minimalist life, because it shifts the focus from the excitement of new to the quiet satisfaction of still good. When your belongings last, you don't need to keep shopping. When they truly fit your life, you don't feel the constant itch to upgrade. On a very ordinary day, this principle might look like standing in a store with something in your hand or hovering over the Buy Now button on your phone and choosing to slow down. You open your wallet or glance at your bank app, but more importantly, you open a small space in your mind and let those 3 questions step in. How long will I really use this? Will it serve multiple purposes? Do I actually use something like this often? If the answers are vague, hopeful, or just wishful thinking, that's your quiet signal. You can put the item back, close the tab, and walk away a little lighter. And maybe the real question that lingers is this: if you only welcome things into your life that were truly built to stay, how different would your home and your inner world feel a year from now? 2. Create a clear spending plan. Only buy what you truly need. If buy quality, not quantity, is about choosing the right things, then this part is about something even quieter, knowing exactly how much space you have for those choices. For a long time, I lived with this vague feeling of, I should probably spend less. But my money moved like fog. I knew rent and bills were paid somehow, but the rest just disappeared into coffee, takeout, random online orders, little treats I told myself I deserved because I was tired. At the end of the month, I wasn't sure where anything had gone, only that I felt guilty and slightly out of control. Minimalism taught me that a simple plan can be more healing than any dramatic restriction, especially when that plan is made with intention. In Japan, there is a traditional budgeting method called kakeibo. It's often done by hand in a notebook, not just as a financial tool, but as a way to become more conscious. You don't just set numbers and hope for the best. You write down every expense. You ask yourself what you spent, how much, why, and whether it brought enough value to your life. It sounds simple, but the act of writing slows you down. You can't just swipe your card and forget. You see in black and white how many times just a small thing actually happened. The first month I tried this, I was honestly shocked at how often I had no memory of the money I had already spent. It wasn't that I was bad with money, I was just living on autopilot. So I began setting up a monthly spending plan with real categories, not just, I'll try to be careful. I took a quiet evening, opened my notebook, and wrote down the essentials of my life: housing, food, transportation, utilities, savings, and then the softer categories like entertainment, eating out, small pleasures. I gave each category a number, not as a punishment, but as a way of giving it a container. Then, as the days went by, I wrote each expense under its category, like keeping a diary. Rent went where rent belonged. Groceries went to food. A movie night went to entertainment. After a few weeks, patterns started to appear. Some categories were always tight. Others had room I never noticed. And a few were overflowing with small, forgettable purchases. Alongside kakeibo, I used a very practical tool, the envelope method. Traditionally, you divide your cash into envelopes labeled with your categories. When the envelope is empty, you stop spending in that area. The modern version can be digital, with separate sub-accounts or simple trackers on your phone. But the spirit is the same. For example, if you decide that this month you have a certain amount for eating out, you place that cash in an envelope, or you track it carefully in a separate space. Each time you go for coffee or dinner, you subtract it from that specific amount. When it's gone, you don't argue with yourself. The decision was already made at the beginning of the month when you were calm. That limit, instead of feeling like a cage, slowly becomes a kind of freedom, because you know you aren't silently borrowing from next month's peace. Imagine a full month lived this way. On the first day, you sit down with your notebook or budgeting app and you give every dollar a place to live. During the weeks, you simply record, without judgment, what you actually did. At the end of the month, you open your notebook and see it all laid out. You notice that your entertainment category was exactly enough, and that you could say with confidence, "This is how much I can spend on fun next month," without feeling anxious. You might realize that you've been overspending in one area that doesn't actually make you happy, and underspending in another that genuinely nourishes you. Traditional Japanese methods like kakebo aren't just about saving. They are about awareness, about seeing clearly which expenses support the life you want and which are just noise. On a very ordinary day, this might look like you standing in front of a shelf at the supermarket or about to order something from your phone. You think about your plan, about the envelope for this category, about what you already wrote down this week. Maybe you close the shopping app, or maybe you decide to buy. But either way, you do it with your eyes open, and perhaps as you put your wallet back in your bag, a gentle question appears. If your money is one of the most concrete forms of your energy, what would change if you guided it with intention, instead of letting it scatter wherever the day happens to push you? 3. Resist temptation, limit exposure to ads and discounts. Up to this point, we have been talking about choosing better and planning better, but there is another layer that often goes unnoticed. The constant stream of messages trying to convince you that what you already have is not enough. Discounts, flash sales, limited offers, only today banners. They don't just show you products, they quietly whisper that you are missing out, that you will be safer, happier, more complete if you buy now. In Japanese minimalism, there is a concept called danshari, and the first character, Dan, means to refuse. Not clean up later, not fix the damage afterward, but refuse what is unnecessary before it crosses the threshold of your life. That refusal begins long before your credit card comes out. Modern advertising is built on manufacturing desire. It studies your behavior, tracks your clicks, follows your scroll. It knows when you are bored, tired, lonely, or vulnerable. And that's when the perfect offer appears on your screen. A 70% discount sounds amazing until you realize you never needed the item at 100% price either. Yet your brain hears discount and quietly switches from "do I need this?" to "I would be stupid not to take this deal." Minimalism gently invites us to flip that script. Refuse the offer first, then decide if you truly need the item. If the answer is no at full price, it is still no at any price. The Dan in danshari is like a soft boundary that protects your attention. Instead of constantly fighting the urge to buy, you simply choose to meet fewer temptations in the first place. When I first started, I thought I just needed more willpower, but what I actually needed was less exposure. So I did something simple and a bit scary. I began unfollowing brands on social media, unsubscribing from promotional emails, muting shopping apps, and turning off as many notifications as I could. For a week, I stopped letting my phone call me into the role of consumer every few minutes. The silence felt strange at first, like a room after you turn off a loud fan, but then I realized how much calmer I felt without a constant stream of, "You need this now." You can think of these changes as minimalist housekeeping for your mind. Using an ad blocker on your browser, clearing old shopping apps from your home screen, or moving them to a hidden folder are not dramatic revolutions, but they slowly change the landscape of your day. Fewer ads seen means fewer artificial desires sparked. Fewer discount codes received means fewer mental negotiations about whether to take advantage of the sale. Danshari is not only about throwing things away, it is about actively refusing unnecessary items and temptations before they have a chance to clutter your home and your head. Imagine a month where you deliberately reduce how often advertising speaks to you. You unsubscribe from those newsletters that flood your inbox with last chance subject lines. You unfollow 3 or 4 brands whose posts always leave you feeling like your life is slightly outdated. You use an ad blocker, so your late night browsing is not constantly interrupted by shining boxes telling you what you lack. After a while, you notice something subtle. You are thinking less about what to buy next and more about what you already have. You are less stirred up, less rushed, less on edge. The space inside you that used to be filled with, "I should get this before it ends," becomes a quiet place again. Maybe for you, this begins in a very simple way. You open your email, scroll through the promotions tab, and instead of clicking the newest sale, you click unsubscribe. You hold your phone, thumb hovering over a shopping app, and decide to move it off your home screen so it is not the first thing you see when you are bored. Then you put the phone down, breathe, and realize that nothing bad happened when you refuse the invitation to consume. And perhaps the question that lingers is this: if you saw fewer messages telling you what you lack, how much more clearly would you be able to feel that you are already, in so many quiet ways, enough? 4. Be content with what you have. Focus on the present. Even if you buy better and refuse more temptations, there is still a quiet storm that can undo everything: comparison. I used to open my phone just for a minute, and suddenly I was swimming in other people's lives. New kitchens, new wardrobes, new trips, new gadgets. Nothing in my own home had changed in those few minutes, but somehow everything felt a little duller. My perfectly fine bag suddenly looked old. My phone, which worked just fine in the morning, began to feel slow and outdated by evening. It wasn't that I needed more, it was that my attention had been pulled away from my own life and into a constant measuring contest. That's when spending becomes emotional, not practical. You don't buy because something is broken. You buy because something inside you feels less than. In the Japanese idea of danshari, there is a second character, sha, which means to let go. Not just letting go of objects, but letting go of attachments and the endless hunger for more. Sha asks you a gentle question. What if the real weight you are carrying is not the things themselves, but the belief that you are incomplete without the next upgrade? When we live in comparison, money becomes a tool for chasing an ever-moving target. There will always be someone with a nicer kitchen, a bigger home, a more curated closet. Minimalism doesn't deny this. It simply steps out of the race. It shifts the inner sentence from, "I can't have that yet," to, "What I have now is already enough for the life I want to live today." I started to notice how comparison showed up in tiny, ordinary moments. I'd scroll through Instagram and feel a little knot in my chest. Maybe I need that style of coat. Maybe my living room is too simple. Maybe I should redo my whole space. None of these thoughts came from my real needs. They came from stepping into someone else's highlight reel. So I decided to try something soft but firm. Each night before bed, instead of thinking about what I lacked, I wrote a short list of what I already had. Not big, dramatic things, just 3 or 5 small lines. The shirt that still feels good after years, the meal I could cook from what was already in my kitchen, the quiet corner of my home where I could read. After a week, something shifted. Those restless, "I need a new life" thoughts got quieter, because I was finally looking at my actual life with open eyes. Contentment doesn't mean you never want anything again. It means your wants become lighter, less urgent, more aligned with who you are now. When you practice noticing what is already supporting you, money stops being a way to fix imagined flaws and becomes a way to gently maintain what matters. Before, if I felt low, I would open a shopping app and start browsing, hoping a new purchase would change my mood. Now, I am more likely to make tea, straighten my desk, or turn to that gratitude list and remind myself of the many ways I'm already provided for. It's a subtle change, but it has a very practical result. Fewer "I deserve this" impulse purchases, and more honest questions like, do I actually need this, or am I just trying to soothe a feeling? On a day like any other, this mindset might look like you opening your wallet and really seeing what it represents. Hours of your life, effort, energy. You pause before spending and remember 3 things you already own that serve you well. You glance around your room and pick one object that quietly makes your life easier, and you let yourself feel grateful for it instead of blind to it. Then maybe you close the shopping tab, not because you're forcing yourself to, but because for this moment, it's enough. And as you set your phone down or turn off your laptop, you might hear a soft question rise inside. If you truly honored the life you have right now, how many of the things you think you need would gently fall away on their own? 5. Spend intentionally to create breathing space. Reduce mental burden. By now, you can probably feel that Japanese minimalism isn't really obsessed with money itself. It cares more about the quality of your life around that money. Smart spending lives right at that intersection. It's not about being cheap or punishing yourself. It's about being intelligent and intentional so that your money stops working against you and starts quietly working for you. For a long time, I thought saving meant saying no to everything fun. But what I slowly discovered was that messy, impulsive spending didn't just empty my account, It filled my mind with noise, guilt, second-guessing, little waves of stress every time I checked my balance. When I started spending more deliberately, yes, I had more savings. But the bigger surprise was the space I gained inside my head. When you choose smart spending, you're not choosing a smaller life. You're choosing fewer things that weigh you down so you can have more of what actually moves you forward. In Japan, many people live in compact spaces, which naturally forces careful choices about what comes in. That same spirit can apply to your calendar, your bank account, your mental energy. You begin to treat every purchase as a decision about the kind of life you're building, not just a reaction to a feeling in the moment. I remember noticing this shift in myself when I stopped casually buying just because, and suddenly had extra money sitting in my account at the end of the month. The number looked nice, but what felt even better was the quiet. No more buyer's remorse. No more mental loop of, should I return this? Was this really worth it? Why did I buy that? With that, quiet new possibilities appear. Instead of your money disappearing into random objects that you barely remember, it can start flowing toward things that truly enrich your life. For me, that meant signing up for a cooking class I had always put off. Taking a short trip I kept telling myself was too indulgent, investing in learning and experiences that stayed with me long after they were over. When your stuff doesn't keep multiplying, your schedule and your mind don't have to keep managing it. You clean less, maintain less, worry less. Decision fatigue softens because you're not constantly choosing between 10 slightly different versions of the same thing. Minimalism reduces clutter and distraction outside so you can gain clarity inside. And that clarity spills into how you spend, how you save, how you dream. Smart spending is also about creating flexibility. When your expenses are intentional instead of automatic, you start to see the small gaps where freedom lives. The extra cushion that lets you take a slower month at work. The ability to help someone you care about without panicking. The option to say yes to an opportunity that might not pay off immediately, but feels deeply right. You're no longer trapped by subscriptions you forgot about, impulse buys you regret, or a lifestyle built to impress people who aren't really looking. That is the hidden gift of spending with intention. Your life becomes lighter, more responsive, more aligned with what matters to you now, not who you were 5 purchases ago. On a practical level, this might look like a very simple moment. You open your wallet at the checkout line, or you hover over the place order button online, and you pause to ask, if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to later? More time, more freedom, more peace of mind? Sometimes the answer will still be yes, and that's beautiful because it's a clear yes. Other times you might close the tab, put the item back, and decide to keep that space, in your home, in your schedule, in your future, open a little longer. And maybe the question that stays with you is this: if your spending became a way to protect your time and your mental peace, not just to fill your days, how would the shape of your life slowly begin to change? If there's one thread running through everything we've talked about, it's this: money isn't just numbers. It's how you feel when you live with the things you've chosen. I used to live in that tight space where every purchase came with a little wave of guilt and stress. Japanese minimalism didn't magically fix my finances, but it did give me a gentler way to move through them. We started with buying quality, not quantity, choosing fewer, better things so your home and your mind don't overflow. Then we talked about creating a specific spending plan so each dollar has a clear place to go and you're not guessing at the end of the month. We learned to reject temptation by limiting ads and discount traps, so you're not constantly pulled into buying what you never needed. We practice being content with what you already have, loosening the grip of comparison and never enough. And finally, we looked at smart spending as a way to create space, more savings, more flexibility, more room to breathe. You don't have to change everything overnight. Maybe today you just pick one principle. Maybe you unfollow a few brands, or write down your expenses for the first time, or choose not to buy the almost right thing. If this spoke to you, feel free to like the video and tell me in the comments. Which principle do you want to try first? Or what minimalist habit are you curious about? And as you close this video and return to your own quiet, perhaps you'll notice that the real comfort you've been looking for was never in the next purchase, but in finally feeling at peace with the life you already call yours.